Hey guys, John Adams with Modern Design Aquascaping. We specialize in ponds, fountains, and waterfalls made out of natural stone and wood, and our goal is to inspire and educate you about ponds and water features. Today we're putting together a video. This is our second stop now to compare the difference between a zero edge or a negative edge style pond and a pond with an intake bay. Both of these are alternatives to a skimmer box. And what I want to do is I want to kind of show you the pros and cons of each filter so that you can decide what's the best one for you. If you're a person who's thinking about doing a custom koi pond or adding something on to an earth pond, this is a video for you. So let's talk about what they both do as a whole. First of all, they pre-filter your water. These are your intake bay, and your negative edge are your mechanical filter. They pull the garbage into the corner, it sinks down into the rocks, and you mechanically clean it. These two systems save lives, basically, animal life. It stops stuff from being able to get down into your pumps, and I hate to say it, but getting ground up in your pumps is a thing that can happen if your pumps aren't situated properly in your water feature. So this is important. They also allow you easy access in the corner of your pond somewhere to get into your pump without having to go swim and scuba dive, whatever, and pull your pump out, service your pump, clean it, do whatever you got to do when it's time to do it. It's very simple and easy to access. So let's start out number one, intake bay. No, I will not cast a spell. One of the most important things to understand about the intake bay, big difference between that and the negative edge, the intake bay is inside of the pond. So if you can see here, this is the edge of your pond excavation, okay? This is your waterfall coming down in. I'm gonna explain some basics. And then this is your pond water. So the intake bay right here is built into the side of your pond. And what that does is when you turn your pumps off, or if the electricity goes out, the water level is stable. So here you have your water level all the way across, and the power goes out, water just stops. You have water in motion, it all flows down into the pond. Water in motion is a conversation for another video. If you want to know more about that, hit me up in the comment section and we can create something more or have a conversation about it. But that's a big thing, is that the intake bay is inside the pond. So one of the things that that does for you is that you don't have the potential for jumpers. And what jumpers are, obviously a fish can jump out of the pond and into the grass, but he doesn't have somewhere to go here that's dangerous for him. So a fish can swim from the pond through this area and swim around in here, and he can swim back out. Even if the power goes off, this water level still stays the same. So that's important to know. Now, this is obviously going to be a less expensive alternative to the negative edge or zero edge skimming system, and I'll show you why here in a little bit. But lower cost is one of the factors with the intake bay. So the intake bay during construction, this size or footprint of your intake bay is based on flow rate. That's an important thing to remember. So this is a side view obviously, but if you look down from the top, the amount of area that your water has to go into is based on flow. It's not based on anything else other than flow rate. Another thing to understand about your intake bay is that your performance of an intake bay is affected by the water level in your pond. So obviously this is going to be designed, how deep it is, how wide it is, all of those factors. We'll cover how to properly design and build an intake bay in a later video. If you have questions about that, hit me up down below. But as your water level goes down, this area where the water's flowing in through, velocity increases. So it becomes more and more difficult for fish to get in and out based on how low the water level goes. And if the water level drops down to this point where it's dropping over, it can no longer get into the intake bay. The last thing I want to point out about your intake bay is that the debris that lands in your pond doesn't just go away. And that's the big difference between the intake bay and the negative edge or zero edge pond, is that here the water holds the debris, it pulls it into one corner, but it does have the potential to back up into that pond area. So I think we covered the basics on the intake bay and how it works. If you want to know more about that, hit me up in the comment bar because I could get technical for hours and hours. First thing we're going to get to with the negative edge is right here. You can see the surface of the pond water actually falls down into the reservoir of this pond. So what that does is it sweeps all of the debris and pollen and bubbles, dust, everything that could gather on the surface of your pond, and it is all allowed to fall down into this area where I'm standing at. So there is never debris able to back up onto the pond. That is the most amazing thing about a zero edge or negative edge pond. And that's where that negative edge or zero edge name comes from, because it falls. If you've ever seen a water feature where there's multiple ponds, one pond, and then there's a stream and water streams out of that pond and it falls into another pond that's down a little lower, that upper pond always has the most amazing water quality, and all of the debris falls off and goes down into the lower one. Same situation we have here on the negative edge. Big thing you want to know. So this area right here is where we started talking about the jumpers. You have fish that can potentially come across here. I have built several of these over the years on big water features, and it's just not common for fish to go over the top. But a lot of that is about building your water feature right so that you're not encouraging fish to go over the negative edge. If you want to know more about how to properly design a negative edge, hit me up in the comment bar, because there are a lot of things you need to do in order to ensure that the fish aren't going over the edge all the time. That's kind of important if you love your fish. So, cost factor. This is not inside your pond. This right here on a negative edge is actually a containment system that is built outside of your pond and the water falls into it. That's where the big cost differential comes in. That's where understanding water in motion comes in. That's really important that you have a grasp on water in motion, because whatever your headwaters are going to fall into here. You have to figure out and calculate water in motion, and you have to have that in order to properly design this. Your water level in your pond never changes. Think about that. In the intake bay, it fluctuates. In the negative edge, the water always has to be the same height in the pond in order to fall off. This barrier never changes. The water level fluctuates inside of the reservoir below ground. So this is where it's key to get the size right. If this area down here isn't designed properly, you're going to be in big trouble when it comes to turning the thing on and off and getting it to function the way that it needs to function. So the next thing we want to talk about, because the water level in your pond never changes, the velocity going down into here never changes. Things are more constant with this. The only thing that's fluctuating is water level underground in this containment area. And one of my favorite things about this containment area is that these ponds with these negative edge systems, they seem to be a lot more stable to me, because you have a large volume of water that's being held in the ground. It's not exposed to sunlight. The temperature swings just aren't as severe, and I think that it keeps the pond a bit cooler, and that really has a positive effect on the whole ecosystem and how well it operates. Overall, the negative edge, installed properly, this negative edge zero edge system will give you the best water quality in your pond. But remember, this is technically not a biological filter. This is a mechanical filter. This cleans the debris out of your water as it passes through the gravel before it gets down into the pump. When paired with the correct size biological filter, either one of these advanced skimming systems will give you amazing water quality in your pond. The more beautiful they are and the easier they are to maintain, the more time you're going to spend enjoying them and the less time you're going to spend worrying about them. So if you're thinking about a large custom pond project, now that you understand a little more about the negative edge, zero edge skimming system and the intake based skimming system, I hope you can make a better decision on what might be right for you. So if you guys like this video and you feel like you learned a lot about water features here and this is helpful to you, do me a favor, give me a thumbs up and tell us that you liked it. Hit the subscribe button down there if you want to know more about water features that we get to be a part of. And if you have any questions or concerns, just type them into that comment bar down there. I'd love to interact with you personally. So thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.